Before the story of the Boston Strangler can unfold, and my uncle and I recreate the investigation, it's important to know where all this began. Who was the real Detective Phil DiNatale before fear struck the hub city and obsessed my grandfather? The youngest of 3 boys, the last thing I remember about my mom's father was to stay out of his way. I was 5, and he was living in my oldest brother's room with tubes up his nose. It was obvious he was waiting to die at the age of 67, because for Phil, if he wasn't out sleuthing, he would rather be dead. Born in 1919, the same year his father joined the Boston police force, Phil was one of 7 kids. He was the 4th born to 2 Sicilians, Salvatore and Beatrice.
Born May 4th, 1888. This is in his handwriting. This is our heritage. Started from Oliveria province in Messina, Italy, August 19th, 1897. From Naples, August 21, 1897. Arrived in New York City, September 12th, 1897. Arrived in Boston, September 13, 1897. The ship name was the Sardinia.
Although these days we're proud of our Italian heritage, once upon a time it meant you were a minority, especially in a very Irish Boston.
We were, at that time, a lot of people will laugh at this, we were the only Italian-American family living in that neighborhood.
As Italian immigrants, it was important for the DiNatales to become as American as they could and shed their Italian identity.
You too, Auntie? Did you speak Italian growing up?
We didn't speak Italian too long because when my brother Anthony went to school, he could speak English, and they sent him home. So I was the next one to be going. So my father said, "Don't you dare talk to your mother in Italian. No matter what she says, you answer her in English."
My great aunt even switched her name from Philippa to Phyllis to be a little bit more American, and claimed that the family stopped cooking with garlic so that they wouldn't smell like Italians at school. It's from this prejudice that my grandfather and his brothers all joined the fight against fascism and World War II.
But that's your great-grandfather right there. That's my dad signing me in the Navy in 1943.
That's her. In the island of New Guinea, I would be getting packages. My sister would mail me fruitcake, and on the top of the fruitcake and on the bottom in the box, it would be all police papers.
Despite the fact that there was a war waging abroad, Sal was still training his boys to become blue bloods, and once they returned home, the expectation for everyone to take on the role of truth seeker was high.
And I'd like to go back a little why I wanted to become a detective, and the reason is that, number one, was my father was a detective in the Boston Police Department for 38 years. So when we were kids, my father used to get us all in a table there, and he would discuss his work and tell us about his pinches or his rest. We would all be amazed and intrigued by his stories. Right then and there, I made up my mind I was going to become a police officer like my father and the rest of my brothers. One of my brothers, Edward, took the exam. He was on the list, but he didn't want the job, so he went into the gas company, so we were sorry about him.
It was in 1947 that Phil finally fulfilled his childhood dream and joined the ranks as a Boston police officer. It's easy to see where he garnered his work ethic. For his father, Salvatore, it was about breaking the stereotype of lazy or crooked Sicilians and combating this mafioso mentality with good, clean detective work.
I love these files. This is my grandfather's handwritten notes. Here he is in 1950, and he's one of the first detectives on the Boston Police Department, and he has his handwritten notes. Detective Salvatore DiNatale, assigned to the Brinks Inc. holdup, 165 Prince Street, Boston, on February 1, 1950. February 3rd, 1950, I checked for information from house to house, and there he goes. He goes on. So, there's his day-to-day reports. And then, of course, we look in and we see take a look at Phil's notebooks, and it's the same thing. You know, his day-to-day investigations.
Phil had learned everything from his father before him. It was in his blood to be an investigator. And like the rest of the country, Phil returned home and was ready to start his life. But like anything, nothing comes for free, and it was now time to make his own path and prove himself as an Italian on a very Irish police force.